December 24th, a day that would change Jujutsu society forever and go down in history. Yuji and the gang are in full support of the strongest sorcerer, wishing Gojo the best of luck as he heads out into the biggest battle in not just his life, but maybe in history, against the King of Curses, Sukuna. Despite the battle taking place in Shinjuku, Gojo makes the first move all the way from Shibuya. With the help of Ichiji, Gakukanji, and Utahime, Gojo unleashes a 200% hollow purple towards Sukuna. Thanks to a barrier put up by Ichiji, the attack was hidden from the King of Curses, giving him very little time to react to the attack, causing him to take considerable damage, including missing limbs. Thus, the battle of the strongest of the modern era versus the strongest of all time kicked off, with Gojo declaring Sukuna the challenger. This amuses him, declaring that Gojo is nothing more but a fish atop his chopping board. A bit fresher than others, but still a nameless fish. Refusing to take Sukuna's bait, Gojo asks why he's still wearing Megami's face, and that if it's because Sukuna thinks he'll hold back against his student, he is mistaken. Gojo has been through special training and knows that Sukuna's vessels have survived death once already. Thus, Gojo can figure out what to do with Megami after killing Sukuna. And so they go head to head in an intense taijutsu brawl, with Gojo swiftly slipping below Sukuna to dodge an attack, flinging him straight through a building. Before Sukuna even had a chance to stand back up, Gojo was back again, unleashing a relentless onslaught of attacks to force the King of Curses onto the defensive. Before you knew it, the bridge they were on began to collapse, but rather than view this as an issue, Gojo instead turned it into a weapon, sending the large structure straight at Sukuna. It missed, giving him the chance to finally retaliate with Dismantle, which barely missed Gojo. However, the sorcerer had taken his eyes off his opponent for just a moment, giving Sukuna the chance to bring things back to close range combat. Gojo's limitless technique, however, made things difficult, as he couldn't land a punch. It also saved the sorcerer from the building which had fallen atop of him following the destruction of Sukuna's Dismantle. Things were about to level up though, as the two engage in a high-level domain battle. The two were evenly matched, with them cancelling out each other's sure-hit attack. However, the uniqueness of Sukuna's barrierless domain gives him the edge. This is because it can subsequently attack Gojo's barrier from the outside, which is its weak point. Thus, his domain breaks, with Sukuna landing a clean attack on Gojo, piercing his neck. In spite of this, his quick thinking to activate reversed curse technique saved his life, much to the relief of those watching. However, the longer he remained in Sukuna's domain, the more onslaughts he'd suffer. It would usually be easy for Gojo to teleport out of Malevolent Shrine. However, one of the downsides of his domain being destroyed is that he's unable to use his curse technique, leaving him in one heck of a tricky situation. Regardless, Gojo stands firm with blood spewing from his body, taking the thousands of blades being slashed across him. He makes a run for it, causing Sukuna to follow. However, Gojo parries the attacks and counters the King of Curses. Sukuna comments on how Gojo's still moving pretty well despite constantly using RCT at full output, whereas Gojo deduces that the heart of Malevolent Shrine is not Sukuna, but the actual shrine itself. Thus, he activates Simple Domain to counter the sure-hit attack while simultaneously using RCT to further heal himself. However, all this manages to do is buy him a few seconds of time before he has to activate Simple Domain again to negate Sukuna's technique. At this point, Gojo had used Domain Expansion, continuously used Max Output Reverse Curse Technique, which required double the energy, all on top of everything else he's had to endure so far. And so, as he bleeds from his head, his neck is slashed once more, forcing those to ask the forbidden question of, is Satoru Gojo going to lose? However, he had a trick up his sleeve. Rather than use RCT to heal himself, Gojo instead started to switch it to heal his curse technique, which was exhausted from the loss in the domain battle. And so Gojo teleports himself forward and wraps his legs around Sukuna, forcing him to stay as close as possible. With no way to move, Sukuna had no choice but to take on a reversal red from point blank range. The King of Curses was sent hurtling towards the shrine shrine in a bloody mess, whilst Gojo stood tall, using this small victory as a moment to heal his cuts. With an entertained smile beaming across his face, Gojo asked Sukuna, "You can expand your effective range, can't you?" With this being the case, Sukuna had activated his maximum range of his malevolent shrine, with Gojo simultaneously casting his unlimited void. Round 2 of the domain battle began. Such a reckless move surprised everyone. After all, it didn't end up so great the last time. However, Gojo had a plan. He switched the internal and external conditions of the barrier. This made it immune to Sukuna's outside attacks. However, the King of Curses still had tricks up his sleeve. He used domain amplification at the same time as his expansion, nullifying Gojo's Limitless. Because of this, Sukuna could make direct contact with the sorcerer, allowing him to turn off his sure hit attack as he'd now be immune to Gojo's unlimited void. The reason for this was because he knew from his time inside Yuji that those in direct contact with Gojo would not be affected by his domain's attack. This proved to be a genius play by Sukuna, as by using a binding vow, he subsequently increased the power of his attacks from the outside of the domain by turning off the attack inside. Thus, Gojo had once again lost the domain battle. However, his wounds were only shallow thanks to his use of Falling Blossom Emotion. This was a secret anti-domain technique known within the big 3 sorcerer clans. However, it's not strong enough to just completely cancel out the attack and instead just weakens it. But this bought Gojo just enough time to heal his curse technique again, casting yet another domain expansion. It rapidly engulfed the surrounding area, but then something completely unforeseen occurred. It shrunk down to be smaller than a basketball with both he and Sukuna inside. This would normally be impossible to achieve, as a domain size is limited by whether or not the one casting it can envision being inside something smaller than what they can actually fit in. However, Gojo's time in the Prism Realm allowed him to do exactly that. Nonetheless, Sukuna also reduced his domain barrier size to increase the output of his cursed technique. It was a do or die situation for Gojo. If he lost this battle, he would have lost the war. But that's when the unforeseen occurred. Both domains had collapsed simultaneously. Sukuna's onslaught from the outside broke Gojo's, whilst Gojo hurt Sukuna to the point that he could no longer keep his domain active. Because of this, both of them were left without the use of their cursed technique. The problem was that by Gojo revealing that he could use RCT to restore his technique, Sukuna figured that why couldn't he do it too? Thus, the sound of a wheel turning could be heard as Gojo's nose began to bleed. Mahoraga had been summoned. Gojo brushed this off, however, with the two activating their domain once again. Now he had exactly 3 minutes to destroy Malevolent Shrine and hit Sukuna with his unlimited void and secure the victory. Despite that, both domains had been destroyed simultaneously. However, they persisted once more. This time though, Gojo had done it. He was a fraction faster at casting his domain and subsequently hit Sukuna with unlimited void for 0.01 seconds, giving Gojo the opportunity to destroy Sukuna's domain before the 3 minutes was up by piercing him through the heart. Thus, the King of Curses' brain had been hit directly by the full power of unlimited void. This wasn't enough for Gojo though. He knew Sukuna had recovered from a destroyed heart once before, and so he was committed to annihilating all of his organs this time. However, Mahoraga emerged from the shadows, halting Gojo's advances. The Shikigami had adapted to unlimited void already and destroyed it before Gojo could finish the job. From this moment forward, the battle had entered an entirely new stage. Firstly, it should have been impossible for Mahoraga to adapt that quickly. It was only 0.01 seconds after all. Furthermore, Sukuna should have been rendered immobile by Unlimited Void's power, yet he was moving just fine. The only way this would be possible is if somebody else connected to Mahoraga took the sure hit attack of Unlimited Void? Well, luckily for Sukuna, his decision to make Megami his vessel paid off, as the poor 15-year-old child had been sent further into despair by being the one to take the brunt of the attack. However, Gojo states that Megami's soul took on the process of adaptation, not the result itself, meaning both Sukuna and Mahoraga would be vulnerable to another Unlimited Void if Gojo was to summon one. But that's the problem. If Gojo could summon one. Suddenly, blood poured from his nose once again when he tried to use his domain. The worst case scenario had occurred. You see, a person's curse technique is engraved in the right prefrontal cortex of the brain, and the constant use of Gojo's has put him under immense strain, which meant that the next time he used his domain, he would perish. Thus, with Mahoraga summoned and Unlimited Void gone, Sukuna had the upper hand. So much so that he believed the victory was already sealed. He said his farewells to Gojo, claiming that the only reason he was hailed as the strongest of this era was because Sukuna wasn't around, and that in reality he was merely an ordinary human. He summoned Malevolent Shrine and nothing. It instantly collapsed, as the short amount of time Sukuna spent inside of Unlimited Void was enough to put him out of commission. Thus, the upper hand that he thought he had was lost in the matter of seconds. Gojo, bursting out in laughter at this, declared that he would continue showing off. After all, his students were watching. Things went back to basics from here, with Gojo hitting Sukuna with a good old beatdown to put him in his place. With a great big grin on his face, he dragged Sukuna through the ground, carving the city around them apart, before launching him into a nearby wall, where Gojo, using his blue technique, used the rubble to enclose Sukuna. As expected though, this didn't keep him at bay, as Sukuna came storming through, dodging a kick from Gojo, countering with his own. But yet again, the sorcerer was one step ahead. Gojo created after images by swiftly moving side to side, quickly attacking from all angles but with no success, as he sent hurtling towards a traffic light. At that moment, Mahoraga's wheel turned. When Sukuna used his domain amplification, the wheel would go black, indicating its inability to adapt during that moment. However, this confirmed to Gojo that despite not being able to use domain expansion due to the brain damage he sustained, domain amplification was still no issue. On the other hand, Sukuna deduced that Gojo wasn't using anything aside from his blue technique to avoid adaptation from Mahoraga. Suddenly, the traffic light turns green as the two frantically go head to head once more. Gojo uses blue to launch the traffic light towards Sukuna, but it's effortlessly caught and sent hurtling back towards him. The two then returned to a calm stroll, keeping a safe distance. Gojo announces that he knows Mahoraga's wheel needs another 3 spins before it adapts to his infinity. Sukuna just laughs, declaring that a countdown had now begun until he could wipe that grin from Gojo's face. However, such words just geared him up to finish the battle before those 3 turns even occurred, causing those watching to begin wondering if Gojo might have forgotten about Megami here. The battle commenced nonetheless, with the wheel spinning a second time. Just 2 more to go until Mahoraga had adapted to infinity. Gojo attempted to crush Sukuna by surrounding him with several blue orbs, but he dodged in time, anticipating Gojo's kick from behind, yet he still took big damage with Gojo drawing blood. In spite of this, there was a 3rd spin. Just 1 more to go. This was all part of Gojo's plan though. He wanted Sukuna to believe that blue would be the only technique he used. Thus, he quickly made ground up to hit Sukuna with a reversal red at close range, giving him no time to dodge. However, Sukuna just barely activated his domain amplification in time, minimizing the damage. However, Gojo revealed his trump card, seemingly with no effect, risking it being adapted to. Sukuna claimed that perhaps he had lost his cool, but out of nowhere, the red had come from behind to strike Sukuna. The King of Curses failed to realize that the technique had not exploded and was still active. As a result, he had no time to minimize the damage using domain amplification this time. On top of this, the momentum from the impact sent Sukuna flying straight into Gojo's fist, who unleashed Black Flash. With within the blink of an eye, Sukuna went from calling Gojo out to being knocked out with blood spilling from his mouth as the wheel dropped to the floor. However, it wasn't over yet. As the wheel fell, it spinned one final time as Mahoraga emerged from the shadows, striking Gojo across the chest. Even with him adapting to infinity, the two were still equal. There was a major issue though. Gojo's healing began to slow down. Those watching suddenly began to wonder if the strongest sorcerer, Satoru Gojo, was about to lose. The very same thought even crossed the mind of Gojo himself. As he thinks this, a picture of the only man in history to have bring Gojo this close to death once before appeared in his mind, Toji Fushiguro. Now, all these years later, Sukuna scratched that same itch as him. This only strengthened Gojo's resolve to win even more. He went on the defensive again, but Sukuna had to protect Mahoraga, thus he used Rabbit Escape. However, Gojo unleashed a reversal red, flushing Sukuna out of his hiding. Mahoraga went on the offensive, but Gojo knew Sukuna couldn't let the Shikigami be destroyed, and so he had to protect it whilst giving it a chance to attack. Thus, he threw a fire extinguisher towards the sorcerer. This created a diversion for Mahoraga to attack from above, while Sukuna displayed a new technique. He mixed the water from Megami's Max Elephant Shikigami with Choso's blood-piercing technique to create a concentrated shot of deadly water towards Gojo. With him parrying Mahoraga's attack, he didn't have time to dodge the water bullet. The battle had now become a 2v1, or at least that's what Gojo believed. The reality of the situation was much worse. Sukuna summoned a new Shikigami, Agito, a fusion of multiple others, and so the fight was in fact now a 3v1. The battle took no time kicking into gear, with Gojo successfully standing his ground for the most part. He hit Mahoraga with a close-range red attack, but hardly left any lasting damage. This was Gojo's indication that he had to use his ultimate hollow technique. After bobbing and weaving his way between both beasts, he lands a black flash on Agito, but no luck. However, Gojo knew that he could take both Shikigami out in one move. However, he had to do it fast, as Sukuna was restoring his health with each moment. In fact, as far as he was aware, things were going great. He just had to make sure Gojo could not use purple, no matter what. After all, he'd already got a taste of what damage it could do. And because of this, Sukuna knew that in his current condition, taking one at such close range would prove to be fatal. This dreaded thought caused him to ask Mahoraga to hurry things up and show him what he's truly capable of. And that he did. With a single slice, Mahoraga cut through an entire building, but more importantly, straight through Gojo's right arm. He wouldn't let this hold him back though. If anything, it riled him up further. He disposed of Agito using his maximum output blue technique. That wasn't all though. A second black flash. A rush of exhilaration had overcome Gojo, whose arm suddenly healed back due to the black flash replenishing his ability to use RCT. On the other hand, Sukuna, the king of curses, for the first time in 1,000 years, felt a taste of uneasiness. Gojo landed another black flash on Mahoraga, and then another. He fired his red reversal technique into the air, prompting Sukuna to scream out in distress for Mahoraga to do something about it. He realized what Gojo was planning. He had fired his red attack towards his blue one, knowing that when the two collided, a maximum output hollow purple would be unleashed upon Shinjuku. Mahoraga, who had already adapted to blue, went to nullify it, but was met with the ultimate blockade. Satoru Gojo, who had gotten there before him using blue's power of attraction to pull him in at rapid speed, whereas Mahoraga had already adapted to it, meaning that he had no such increase in his speed. This caused Sukuna to fire off a piercing water towards red, but to no success, as the attack was instead drawn towards blue. The king of curses had failed. Hollow purple. Yes, Sukuna survived, but with major injuries. Gojo, on the other hand, came out relatively unscathed, as it was his own cursed energy he was being hit by. And so, Gojo was declared the winner in the battle of the strongest. But before he even knew it, the sensation in the lower half of his body was completely lost as his consciousness began to fade. Suddenly, he finds himself at an airport surrounded by some of his closest companions, Nanami, Yaga, Geto. It was clear what had happened. Satoru Gojo was dead. As he talks to Geto, he explains how he wishes he could have been there to watch him face Sukuna, as only then would he have felt satisfied. Furthermore, he was saddened by the fact that he couldn't make Sukuna go all out, and that even without Megumi's 10 shadows, he would have just found another way to defeat Gojo. That was the true power of the King of Curses. As the corpse of Satoru Gojo lay before Sukuna, he reveals that he had used Mahoraga as a model in order to replicate its adaptability. The truth is, Sukuna could have ended the fight earlier if he wanted to, but he waited. He waited for the moment he could evolve his own cursed technique to cut the space inside of Gojo's infinity, and in turn cut him as well. Despite this, Sukuna tells Gojo that he will remember his name for as long as he lives, with the sorcerer letting out a faint smile before succumbing to his injuries. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you click the one on your screen right now. It'd be much appreciated as well if you could leave a like and maybe subscribe and ding that notification bell. It really helps out the channel.